Hello, friends. The Ottoman Empire's harem system was vast, powerful, and highly structured, but behind its splendor lay countless dark realities for the women who lived there. Concubines, often brought as slaves from conquered lands or purchased through slave markets, were trained in etiquette, music, and charm, all with the goal of pleasing the Sultan. While some rose to prominence as favorites, wives, or even mothers of future sultans, others faced brutal consequences when they lost favor or were deemed useless. Discarded concubines could be subjected to horrifying fates. Some were forced into servitude for life within the palace, stripped of their dignity and status, never allowed to leave the confines of the harem. Others were brutally silenced to ensure secrets of the palace never left its walls. Execution by strangulation with silk cords was common, as shedding royal blood was forbidden. Certain sultans, especially those with paranoid dispositions, had women drowned in the Bosphorus, their bodies weighted and thrown into the dark waters at night. This was done quietly, with no record, erasing them from history as though they had never existed. Aging concubines or those who bore no children were sometimes transferred to the old palace, Eski Saray, a place often described as a prison of forgotten women. Here, thousands of women lived out their lives in loneliness and despair, deprived of the luxuries of the Topkapi Palace. The old palace was notorious for its silence and decay, a graveyard for ambitions and beauty. Many women slowly lost their sanity there, isolated and powerless. Political intrigue also played a role. Concubines tied to rival factions or accused of plotting were swiftly eliminated. In certain periods, when succession struggles were fierce, even women who had given birth to princes could meet horrific ends. To protect their own lineage, some sultans ordered the execution of concubines and even their own children to remove potential threats. During the reign of Sultan Mehmed III, for example, dozens of his brothers were executed upon his ascension, and their mothers, the concubines who had given birth to them, were either executed or confined to misery. The treatment of discarded concubines was not uniform. Some were given pensions or married off to high-ranking officials. Yet for many, the fate was cruel, shaped by the Sultan's mood, political necessity, or the whispers of palace intrigues. Beneath the veil of opulence, the harem could be a place of horror, where discarded women lived with the constant fear of strangulation, drowning, or a lifetime of forgotten captivity. One of the most infamous examples comes from the reign of Sultan Ibrahim III, Ibrahim the Mad, in the 17th century. His reign was marked by paranoia, cruelty, and unchecked indulgence. He was notorious for his obsession with women. He reportedly kept hundreds of concubines at once. However, when he became convinced that some of them had betrayed him or that their loyalty was doubtful, he ordered one of the most shocking massacres in Ottoman harem history. In a fit of rage, Ibrahim had 280 concubines bound in weighted sacks and thrown into the Bosphorus, their screams muffled by the night waters. It was a horrific display of how easily discarded women could be destroyed to satisfy the Sultan's suspicion or madness. Earlier, under Sultan Mehmed III, late 16th century, paranoia about the throne's succession led to one of the darkest events tied to concubines. When Mehmed ascended the throne, he followed the Ottoman tradition of fratricide and ordered the execution of 19 of his brothers to prevent rival claims. The mothers of those princes, concubines who had once been cherished, were either executed alongside their sons or locked away to spend the rest of their days in torment. They were silenced not only because of grief, but also because they represented dangerous reminders of rival bloodlines. Even under more stable sultans, the fate of unwanted women was often grim. Some concubines who lost favor were forced into khalfa or servant roles, living humiliating lives as attendants to new favorites. Others were handed over as gifts to pashas, governors, or military commanders, stripped of all choice, effectively recycled into new lives of servitude or exploitation. In the old palace, Eski Saray, thousands of discarded women languished for decades. Historical accounts describe the palace as suffocating, filled with bitterness, rivalry, and despair. Women who once glittered in silks and jewels at the Sultan's side ended up in tattered garments, waiting for death. For many, madness was the only escape. Travelers who heard rumors of the old palace compared it to a living tomb, a place where the forgotten women of empire slowly rotted away, unseen by the world. Political intrigue also created moments of horror. If a concubine was suspected of poisoning, witchcraft, or treachery, she could be strangled with silk cords in the dead of night, her body quietly removed. This practice ensured that no blood was spilled, in accordance with Ottoman royal custom, but it also made death eerily silent. Drowning was reserved for larger purges, while strangulation was the method of choice for executions within palace walls. The cruelty varied depending on the personality of the Sultan. Some, like Suleiman the Magnificent, are remembered for elevating concubines such as Harem Sultan to positions of immense power. But others, especially those consumed by paranoia or decadence, reduced women to expendable property, discarding them in the most horrific ways imaginable.